A very warm welcome to Connected Conversations today.
Thank you. Thanks.
So today we've got Adrian Stallum, the Chief Change Officer here at Sullivan & Stanley, and Chris Ralph, expert in agility, technology, delivery, change, people, value. leading into some of the conversation later on. So well equipped to be here today. Today we're going to talk about modern delivery approaches and how well they work in today's complex and disrupted world. But before we jump into some of the detail, Adrian, do you want to just give us a little bit of background on yourself, who you are, what your experiences are, where you've worked before?
Yeah, sure. Started off as a scientist, funny enough. I think I have that scientific mindset, which has always been very useful for business. Did projects and programs through life sciences, through retail, through telco. I really got into big transformation and people transformation and that kind of stuff. But there's always been this kind of delivery element to everything we've done, right? Whether you're doing big transformation or helping organisations to deliver better. Yeah. So there's always been a really strong and passionate focus for me on getting organisations working properly. And that's what hopefully we're talking about today.
Yeah. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, interesting. So similar, different background, but similar themes to Adrian. So I'm coming up to 30 years, out there in the industry now. But I started off very techie, so coding, going through that, but very quickly got to a point where actually I was leading teams. I was a director of an organisation in my 20s, like Adrian, what's always fascinated me is more about how can I enjoy what we're doing as well? So how can we bring teams together, enjoy what we're doing, and deliver great value? And as a result, I've always sort of ended up doing a lot of new things, actually ironically change. So it's all about the new initiatives, setting up delivery centres, global delivery centres, but focused around the people element particularly and getting teams working well. So that's led me into, obviously, recent years, moving more into the transformation space as well. But of course, there's a big hook, lots of technology organisations, product and service organisations looking about their people and how they transform, how they deliver better. So really suits me, and it's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I can already hear that passion coming through actually. And both of you, and just in your intros, we haven't even got to talk about modern delivery approaches yet. So it's a complex world out there today, right? And there's been so much disruptive change over the last few years. Organisations need to be able to adapt to that quickly. They need to be delivering fast and delivering value regularly and relevant value as well that contributes to strategic imperatives and obviously to customers and the experience that they have. But we see this a lot within S&S. We see how organisations are investing a lot in adopting and implementing new ways of delivery. Okay, and we also work with many clients who are not seeing the value off the back of that, and it's quite it's disheartening, and it also means that they're just not putting themselves quickly in the best place or where they need to be in order to be successful in today's business world. So what do you see, Adrian, when you're out there working with clients?
Yeah, very much that. I think it's like someone going to the gym every day but not getting fitter, and it's a bit discouraging to see that sometimes, because there's sometimes a lot of effort put in but not much results. And so we've had delivery methods which were very much sort of deterministic and waterfall, and I've done enough of those. I've done 100 million pound programs, and it can work for some things. It's still relevant for some things. But there was the sort of allure of agile, which really suits small companies. They could adapt to that really quickly, and it just becomes their way of life. But what we've seen is bigger companies really struggling to do that, switch to something which is probably more relevant to the pace of change in the world at the moment, and customer expectations and focus on value. Those are really key things. But when you're coming from a deterministic world of waterfall delivery, you want to go agile, but the whole organisation is being built around something else. Its mindset is different. Its DNA is different. And that transition is really difficult for those bigger companies sometimes to do something which is fundamentally a different way of working. But there's the allure of actually it's going to be more adaptive, faster, hopefully lower cost. Maybe it can do all of these. Let's not be too flippant on what it can do. But we know it can be better. But there's a real struggle to get there.
Okay. So it must be pretty tricky for an organisation that's put an awful lot of effort and funding into fundamentally changing the way that they work and approach delivery. To then face into the hard reality that there's more work to be done must be a pretty difficult place for organisations to be. And, using the word disheartening, it must really feel like that. And how can they justify investing more, whether that be through people or finances, to really get it to the point where they're realising that value? So in effect, that's what happens if they do nothing from now on, Chris?
Well, this is it. So I think there's also a thread around almost organisations starting to panic actually a little bit, because the pace of change is moving exponentially now. So just as a bit of an aside, if you just go back and look at the last century a little bit, beginning of the century, if you look at in the US, there was, you look at the number of horses to people, for example, 330 horses to every 1,000 people, right? Because that's how you got goods around, that's how you move people around. With the advent of the car, the railroads by the 1960s, that dropped to below 20 horses to 1,000 people, right? And why was that? Well, that was because it took that long actually, because they had to invent a whole supply chain. Right? They had to build the factories for the cars and so on. But that was a massive shift for organisations, right? Post-war, how do we move with that? Now, what's happening right now today is you look at technology and you look at the change to the market, look at the changing habits of customers right now. That's measured in months, right? Yeah. And particularly, you certainly look at AI at the moment. So many organisations right now have to be a lot more adaptive to market, to customers. They need technology to support that. So to answer your question, if they don't move or find a way of moving at a much faster pace, right? At best they're going to fall behind the competition. At worst case, potentially they're not going to be around, right? And we've seen a lot of big organisations sort of disappear. So that's why I think there's also a slight. We're starting to see that as well. Like you say, there's a lot of organisations that have tried to do something different. We've tried to do it in the traditional transformation way of top down, posing it on everybody, do it to you. And of course, it takes 12, 18 months and it doesn't deliver the results that they need.
I think that's where the big paradox is as well, right? Why do we do nothing, right? Why is that even an option or sometimes the resultant strategy? And I see so many organisations that seem to have the money to do it wrong, the money to do it slow, the money to do it badly, and yet you come along and say, but we've got a better way of doing it. We haven't got any money for that bit. And it's like the inertia to keep you where you are is pretty damn strong, right? Even though it's not delivering the things you need. And that's difficult. Obviously, there are enlightened people in these organisations who can see a way through, but it's difficult for them. They're stuck in a massive system that is constraining them and stopping them from, building a new cathedral in the middle of what exists already, because it's seen as difficult, different, all of those kind of things.
Well, there's an irony there in that if you look at a lot of organisations, that they have the capability, but it's their organisational structure that silos, functional, structure, reporting lines, that's actually preventing them from actually free thinking and thinking actually, well, what do we need to do for our customers and our market? If we look at what capabilities we have, is there a way that we can cut through that and go out to customers, react to that market a lot better? As I say, so it's not always even a monetary challenge. It's actually more of a mindset shift that try something, do something different.
Yeah, mindset and behaviours and leads to actions. Yeah. So we talk a lot about the foundations that you need to get in place to make sure that your delivery approaches really are working and delivering the value that you need to. And we'll go into those in a little bit more detail in a minute, but fundamentally we're talking about strategy, customer value, people and technology with culture and operating model at the heart of that. Are those interdependent, Chris, or do they need to be connected together?
They have to be connected together. So it's a great question. So we see, and we work with a lot of clients where they have struggled with their transformations, and fundamentally, there's a common theme where they target just one area, right? So let's get we're going to deploy Agile, we're going to put Scrum in or Safe in or whatever, but we're only going to target some technical teams, some squads, and we'll call those cross-functional, right? And we'll get that bit working. But fundamentally, what we see is, it fails because you're only tackling one part of the overall system. So when we talk about strategy, ensuring we tie that in, tying the goals of the organisation, we talk about understanding the customer and moving towards customer-centricity and what that means, value, and we look at the people element and the technology that's going to support that. What you have to do is actually connect and actually, as part of your transformation, get all of those elements working. And the best analogy I've sort of come around have for this is very similar. There's a few of the techies out there will recognise this one. It's called the layer cake, right? So if you're building a digital product, you've got the front end, the screen that you look through. But you've got stuff happening behind that, right? The back end, and then you get the database where your data is, sort of old school. But it's a cake, right? And if you classically have a team that's just working in the database or the front end, right? Neither in isolation will deliver something of value to the customer, right? So what we look at when we talk about these 5 things that we connect, and as part of the transformation, is we have to target all of those 5 things and drive through that layer cake to achieve that value for the organisation and for the customer. So they're absolutely connected, and they're connected through the ways of working and the culture that you build as part of that transformation.
Okay. So it's interesting. So let's start with strategy, because as you're talking there and talking about that connection across all of them, we do see sometimes how there is a significant investment in developing a strategy. Sometimes it's quite long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years as well. But then when you look at the work that teams are focused on doing and delivering, that doesn't feel joined up. Tell us about the strategy element to the modern approach.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's the old, what we used to call in the old world, strategy to execution, right? It's that link between the two, and we come across so many delivery teams who are busy, sometimes overstressed and overworked, but doing stuff, but they don't really know why, and they don't really know how it improves the organisation. They don't know how it helps the customer, but they're doing stuff because they've been given stuff to do, and that's what most delivery systems are set up to do. They're set up to be busy and keep everyone busy. So, when we talk about strategy, one, we make sure we're thinking about those strategic dials. What are the things we're really trying to do from a strategy, and how can we link that through to delivery, through the customer to delivery teams? But one of the ways we do that is through missions, because the great thing about mission-based working is a mission doesn't presuppose the solution. Right, so I could go to a team and I could go, we need a new payment system, and they'll go, great, okay, we'll build a payment system, and they'll build it, and they'll probably be wrong, and they'll fix it and whatever. Or I could go to that team and say, I'd like our customers to be able to pay anytime, anywhere, anyhow, in a frictionless way that's low cost for this organisation. Go find out how. Now that team, one, are now empowered and autonomous to go and find solutions against that mission. They might come up with 10 solutions, one of which might be, we need to build a new payment system. But the other 9 might be process changes, automation, UX changes that can be done relatively quickly, can have a big impact really quickly and improve the customer situation. So if you want to start giving teams purpose, you have to look at the strategy through a mission, and that mission gives them the permission to be innovative. Right? There's so much innovation's been killed in organisations, it's untrue. You want to give them innovation, give them a mission, right? They'll work out where the solutions are. They'll bring all the people they need, all the data they need, all the insight they need, and work out what can be done quickly and what will be effective. And that's where we found so much releasing of innovation, releasing of delivery capability and value and speed and focus for teams. And it all starts with that strategic mission.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, as a bit of analogy, great podcast, 13 Minutes to the Moon, if you've not seen it. So it talks about NASA and obviously how they got to the moon. Now, the really interesting thing is a lot of the films that you see, they've always got mission control, right? And you've got all the people at the at the monitoring desks, and it looks like they're making all the decisions, but they're not. It's actually sort of the people that are closest to the data and to understanding the different areas are in thousands of teams around mission control.
Yeah.
And they're delegating that authority to those teams, right? They're completely empowered to know about that particular area and be the experts in that space, right? But that mission control is more about sort of setting the direction. We're going to the moon, and actually are we all aligned? And it's a similar analogy, right? Because when we talk about organisations, right, a real measure of success as we see it is when we create these mission-based teams. As Adrian says, we give them that sort of playground, we give them direction, but we give them enough space to look at their total sort of problem space and come up with appropriate solutions. The real measure of success is when those teams are the experts, right? There's nothing better as a leader to see your teams come to you and go, we really understand the customer, we understand our markets, this is the qualitative and quantitative data that we're looking at. This is how we can move forward and raise the bar for the organisation and for our customers. That's incredibly powerful. So that's what mission-based working does. It starts empowering those communities.
And just for people who are hearing that term for the first time, because we've used it quite confidently and freely over the last few minutes, what is that? That's the S&S response to modern delivery approach? How would you phrase it?
Yeah, I think, look, we try not to use the A word anymore even, right, the agile word. Agile's brilliant, by the way. I believe in everything on the manifesto. I believe in I've seen some fantastic agile teams. I've seen it done really badly so many times. And organisations who've tried it, done it badly, and then go, well, it doesn't work for us, or it's a load of rubbish, etc.
Combination between waterfall and agile, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll just bastardise it in some way. So it's always got it's almost become a dirty word, a bad word for itself, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But we need to move beyond it because it sets preconceptions. Okay. So we don't even talk about agile so much. We talk about modern delivery methods. Yeah. Could you look back to the values and the principles of agility and go, yeah, it pretty much lives and breathes those. But the trouble with agile is and even cross-functional teams, any of that kind of stuff, it's really simple. Right? The Agile Manifesto is 4 values and 12 principles. It's that simple, guys.
It's really difficult to disagree with any of them, right? Yeah.
Work
together.
But it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what we find organisations struggle with, taking something simple and implementing it and finding out that it's not easy to do. And we've come up with methods to crack that implementation paradox between something being simple but not easy.
And this is the thing with the 5 pillars, because if you think about what we're talking about, strategy and customer and value, people and the technology that drives that, that's a very different conversation to, are you using Jira?
Yes.
Yes, no.
Are you doing stand-ups? Are you doing stand-ups?
Yeah. Are you doing stand-ups? What's your velocity? Right?
Yeah.
Velocity. I mean, actually, in recent years, I've moved completely away from velocity. And we'll come. I think we'll have a conversation around maybe some of those elements that we bring together, Jax, I guess. But value is a key driver. So we're moving away from. I think it's sort of. Over the years, agile is itself got bastardized, isn't it? It's become a set of tools and techniques and ceremonies rather than the principles in the manifesto.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the major differences with our approach that we've sort of honed over the years, which is focus on value, because there's a lot of organisations that went, this is the great white hope, right? It's the we're going to put agility into our organisation, and it never really came off. And we work with some organisations who we looked at their burn rate, and it's probably £4 million a year on some squads and stuff like that. And then we looked at the value they were generating, and it was around about 300k a quarter. And that maths just doesn't add up. And when the CFO finds out, right, then the spreadsheet comes out and people start getting crossed off. So there's a real problem with how do you truly get value out of these teams? It's very easy to put some of the things, we'll do stand-ups and we'll have ceremonies and we'll kind of call that team. They're not really cross-functional, but they're mostly cross-functional. Let's not talk too much about it. We'll put someone called a scrum master in there, and everything will be okay. But actually, when you do the maths, it just does not work out. So when we talk about mission-based working and some of the things we've been doing around product operating models and things like that, it's all about the value. It's one, chase big numbers and big opportunity that's customer relevant, that's strategically relevant, and that can be delivered quickly. Because there's nothing worse than a bunch of executives getting bored with something like changing a delivery system because they're like, well, where's the value? We're 18 months into this and I still don't get it.
So value is at the heart of the work that we do. How do we visualise that and share that across an organisation so that people really understand what the metrics are, how we're measuring them, and really seeing that value that the organisation's delivering? Chris, you're desperate to jump in there.
Sorry.
No.
There's a kind of question before that, I think, which is, well, what is value, or what's your sort of definition?
What is value?
Is value? Well, so I'm going to be, I don't know if it's contentious or not, but for me, what value matters to the business fundamentally, right? So Adrian just alluded to it, is that if again, let's put it in the context of transformation and why transformations fail. How can we spin that the other way, right? How can we land transformational change through the line, right? But stay the course, right? And make that happen. Well, the only thing that's really going to strike home at an executive level is you're moving against your strategic objectives, right? Your strategic KPIs. Let's face it, they're always going to have revenue and growth in there as part of that whole set, right? They might have cost optimization or cost reduction or other measures that they're looking at achieving. Now, how do you get to growth and revenue right now in the current economic climate? That's understanding the customer. That's becoming customer-centric, understanding the market, and then really focusing on the initiatives that are going to move those dials, right? So by becoming then customer-centric and thinking about them and going for that, you're going to increase sales, right? So, for example, customer satisfaction scores going up. Other metrics like that are really kind of lead measures that you'd expect to convert into revenue, which would then drive the lag measures, which are actually hitting your ultimately your bottom line, right? And that's where the execs sit up. So again, that comes back to our 5 areas that we need to key together, because when we look at value, we've got to think about what matters to the organisation and the board. But in doing so, we focus on customer and drive revenue through that. Just as a bit of an example, one of our clients, for example, we released within, I think, 90 days for £15 million worth of value from the team. And that was due to looking at globally how they were working at cross purposes in one area of their business. It was a courier sort of part of their business. And actually realising that there was a much smarter way that they could be joined up globally, come up with a much better solution, a more efficient solution. And then when you start looking at the cost of the team and the return on the investment, and a better customer experience, by the way, because they were getting orders better, things were getting delivered quicker, and you got effectively a 15 million return on the investment within 90 days. That stacks up, right? And the execs are going to listen to that, and then you've got a sustained transformation.
Yeah, it always kind of, I die a little bit inside every time I talk to an exec who goes, yeah, we're 18 months into this, and we've got some pockets of stuff that's looking all right, and I go, how much value have they generated? And they can't even articulate that. And it's just a little bit sad that because it's not that difficult to get the focus right. And the difference is 18 months in without really being able to articulate the value, but we've got 725 people trained, and they're all on level 3. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, right? Show me the money, right? And funny enough, when you start to show CSAT moving, when you start to show revenue coming in, when you start to show customer experience being improved, execs sit up, especially within 90 days, and then they go, what can you do in the next 90 days, right? So it's simple, it's not easy.
It's simple, but it's not easy, and it's human nature sometimes to focus on what we're doing.
Yeah,
right?
we get lost. We get lost in that bubble.
Why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Forget about the criticality of linking it to the strategy, which is moving the dials on the things that matter, and actually the value that we're driving at the end. We just heads down, keep focusing on what we're doing, and that's when you lose the ability to understand what matters to the customer and to create that visibility around value delivering.
And unfortunately, it's Agile 1.0, there was too much focus on making yourself agile rather than delivering value to your customer. And and then too many bad consultancies who would lead you down the wrong path. And funny enough, that's usually where we come in, where someone's tried this once or twice, not got the benefits and the value they're expecting, but they know it's there, right? They actually do see the opportunity in the organisation. They know it's there somewhere, we just can't get to it for some reason because we're tied up in this. We did stand-ups and declared victory. Well, okay, that's not agile, right? So let's not even use the A word. Let's think about what the problem is. Make it right for your context, not Spotify's or SAFe or whatever. Some off-the-shelf methodology is never going to work. But let's make it right for your organisation, your context, and create a way of working that really delivers value, is right for the customer, moves the dials. All of those kind of things. And when it all comes together, and you look back at it, it's bloody obvious.
Simple, but not simple.
Yeah.
And let's also just be clear that this mission-based working works whether you're 2 years into the implementation of your new modern delivery approach, or whether you're right at the beginning of your journey as well, because there's the opportunity then to do it once and do it right first time.
I think that's important. I think if you're a big organisation trying to do the switch, right? If you're the start of your organisation, if you're starting your transformation, for goodness sake, do it properly, do it the right way, because it's going to save you a lot of pain. If you've already been to a big four, consultancy and spent £4 million on an agile transformation and sat there afterwards and gone, not sure what we got from it. The good news is it's not rip it up and start again. That's the good news, right? We can build on those foundations, and we can cut through to the customer. We can cut through to the strategy and to the value. So it's not a waste. It's not throw all this away. It's more about take what you got, build a lighthouse on top of that to really show everyone the way, and then start to scale out from there.
And the really nice thing to bring back to value is that within 90 days, you'll be seeing value delivered by
tangible value.
Working. Yeah.
And usually the first teams in, do not only they're chasing value, and sometimes it's £15 million, sometimes it's a bit less than that, but they've also moved CSAT by 30 or 40%, or they've automated thousands of hours of manual processes. But they've also, along the way, developed their way of working that's right for their organisation. So to sit there and look at what a team can actually do if they're set up correctly with the right kind of drivers, and the right kind of, there's a lot of things we put around the outside of a team like that makes it successful. One of those is we fix the leadership problem, because the leadership problem will hold any team back. Okay. But yes, you can put all those things together and make that happen.
So you talked a lot about customer when you were talking about the value, and customers at the heart of all of the work that we're talking about here, and the approaches and the approach that we take. So with modern delivery approaches, what scenarios could organisations look to use this to really flourish?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's another sort of slight challenge with the classic cookie cutter approach that people take, like, we'll take the Spotify model or whatever, but we'll create a squad, or we'll put a product owner in, and they're the pseudo customer and they understand the product. Actually, what we found is if you start bringing in people who are really close to the customer. So for example, in one of the clients we work with, we brought people in from the contact centre, because they were getting every day, they were on the phone, understanding the customers, understanding where the challenges were. And actually, so what you want to do is to really understand the customers is get very close to those touch points with the customer. Actually bring the customer in, of course, and do interviews and all of that, but understand their challenges. And then the opportunities really open up, because you've got people who and then through quantitative data that you're collecting as well, but you bring that expertise together of people who understand that space, bring together the expertise of the people that can come up with innovative solutions around that space. And suddenly, and you get that moving quicker, suddenly you're responding quicker to the customer, and you're starting to deliver that value through the customer. Still to the customer, should I say. So I think, that's I think where we do something quite different, where again, we're not constrained in an engineering classic construct where we say a cross-functional team is a product owner, a UX designer, some developers and a tester. That is not representative of your business, right? No. If we're putting in a team that's thinking about how can I make your sign-up registration, how you order your service or product sort of experience, How do I get that really moving? Well, we need people right in the operational side of the business to come, and that's where the magic happens, right? So yeah, hopefully that's answered it.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I think it's an approach we've used in many different situations. So, for example, helping an organisation truly build customer journeys and customer journey teams. So they had a project and program methodology which was delivering lots of change into the journeys, but no one owned the journey, so it was a highly fragmented, highly convoluted, confusing sometimes kind of journey. But what we did was elevate their teams to become customer journeys and own chunks of that, which was incredibly brilliant for them. We can build these teams around products, around services, around difficult problems, right? We've done that for clients as well, where they just need that cut through. But I think a lot of organisations we're talking to at the moment around that mythical, Agile 2.0, let's call it, maybe products and platforms kind of mentality, or the product operating model. And that's where we're getting a lot of cut through with and helping our organisations and our clients at the moment, which is really helping bring a product operating model to life. Because if you're building a product operating model on top of bad Agile, because you tried that 3 years ago, it's shit in, shit out, right? So I think when, if you wanted to go sort of product operating model, don't build that on top of bad Agile, right? Yeah. You've got to start to think about things in a different way. But that's where a lot of our clients are pushing at the moment, and that's where we're helping them truly connect product to platform, but connect product all the way through to the customer, all the way through to strategy. And on the back of that, you start to deliver big value through those value streams.
Yeah.
So, I think this one's going to be a very interesting one to explore between three of us. People.
Yeah.
Right. So, just taking it back to some of the things that we've already talked about. You earlier on, Adrian, talked about the strategy and make it relevant to the work that goes on in an organisation, making it directly linked to strategy, and that's made me think of giving people a purpose, right?
Yep.
So when they can connect to the strategy and see how their work is relevant, it gives them a purpose, right? So instead of just coming in and doing work, they understand why they're doing work and how they're contributing to the future development of an organisation, right? Which is brilliant. It's energising and engaging for people. And you also talked about, we talked about going to where the work is, the customer services agents who are on the front line talking to the people that matter every single day. And when you bring them into the mission, the mission-based working, they get to influence what that mission looks like. And that do you see people getting really engaged by that? And it must be incredibly engaging for people.
God, one of the things I absolutely love about the approach we use was a number of things, right? But it's all around the people, right? So first of all, leaders emerge, right? If you create the environment for people to take autonomy around what they're doing and give them purpose, we pretty much every time leaders emerge from that group, right? Someone gets it and starts to pull the rest of the team along, which is just fantastic to watch, because some of those people have just gone on and absolutely thrived from that point onwards. Two, you get the permission to be innovative, right? Which is just fantastic. So now the manager doesn't have to be the one with all the answers. The team actually have got all the answers. The manager's going, what's the best solution we could do here? Well, actually, we can do this, X, Y, and Z. What I love about the third thing is we've looked at some of these teams afterwards, and quite often people are pulled from across the organisation, right? So you have to beg, borrow and steal, and second people in. Nothing is quite as permanent as the temporary, but let's not tell the line managers that. But essentially you borrow people from across the organisation to make these cross-functional teams, and they might be working together for 3 or 6 months or whatever to get this thing up and running. They never want to go back again, right? Quite often they haven't seen their line manager that 3 to 6 months because they've been all-encompassing within the team. And when our clients have then looked at employee engagement, they found that the employee engagement within the team, within this true cross-functional team, is 30% higher than the rest of the organisation. And that just tells you something. When you get purpose, when you get autonomy, innovation, an opportunity to thrive, you get employee engagement for free. We did not put any effort at all into employee engagement, and it went up 30% because you do all the right things around it. It's the same thing like, if you want a plant to grow, you don't manage the plant, right? You you give it sunlight and water and nutrients and good soil and all those other kind of things. You create an environment around it and it grows, right? There's no need to have a manager pointing at it. And so that's one of the great things about this is you get that on the back of it. And so when you can start to replicate that, and when you make that incredibly visible across the organisation, you get FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Everyone else is sitting there going, how come that team are doing all that? Well, how come they've got smiles on their faces, even though we're in a sort of change fatigued, whatever environment we're in at the moment? You know, one of the clients we had, the CEO was great. We do a value radiator, which is just a one-page infographic with the value the team have delivered for the last quarter. And he used to have it as his backdrop on a Zoom call, which is, if you ever want to see engagement, if you ever want to see smiles on the team's face, it's when your CEO's taken your value radiator for the last 90 days and using it as his Zoom backdrop for every single call he's doing. So the people side, we don't really concentrate on the people. We do lots of people stuff, but it's not explicitly focused at that, is it? Because if you get everything else right, that just becomes brilliant for some reason.
We know that people are pivotal to the success of any change in an organisation, right? And you talk about targeted coaching a lot, Chris, don't you? In terms of one of the key parts of the way we work here. So how does this feel different for leaders, for example? We mentioned leaders earlier on in the podcast. What's the major change or major shift for them as they embrace this?
It's massive. So we find that typically when we're working with the delivery teams, the people we bring together to deliver against these missions, when they're given permission through the mission to operate in this kind of playground, they will bite our arms off, right? As Adrian says, they enjoy that way of working. They feel that sense of purpose. The hard, you know, from a people perspective, the ones that are challenged the most are actually leaders, right? So there'll be people watching this that are in leadership positions thinking, really? Yes, really. So we're helping leaders think about, you know, how do they set direction for those delivery teams, but not in a prescriptive way either. So we're moving away from a command and control mode of operating to being able to set direction. Sure, put some boundaries around it, some guardrails around it. But if you go too narrow, the teams will never innovate. They'll never explore that solution space. So that's quite hard, right? So we do a lot of coaching with leaders on how to set that strategic sort of direction through missions to the teams and then how do you truly empower them? Yeah. But the big element is also how do you really support them, right? And this is where we're starting to come on to true servant leadership. So as a leader, you've got to be there for the team, right? They're going to become the experts in that space against that mission. But then what starts happening is they start raising, well, actually, we might need some more people or some more expertise to land this, right? This is why. This is all the data points. This is the return on investment you're going to get, but we kind of need you to go into bat and get this for us, right? And you sort of one request up to the leadership. They go, okay, fine, all right, we'll try and do that, right? Then another one comes, right? And suddenly you get leadership sort of teams actually sort of thinking about how do we manage ourselves, right? So we've now got our own kind of backlog. We've got a list of things that we need to work through. So very often, we find that leadership layer needs a lot of support actually to help to make that shift into modern, servant leadership. And that's another thing that we do through our methodology. Very often you look at transformation, big focus on delivery over here, where are the leaders? Well, we're all sitting on a steering group over here. We're going to measure you on, how you're doing it, right? RAG. What activities have you done last week? What activities are you doing next week? Are you on track? Yes, no. The shift that we make, and it's tied back again to that value pillar that we talk about, is actually the teams tracking the value that they're delivering. It's very different. They're looking at the outcomes that the team, and actually as a leader, you're getting some transparency. You're getting transparency of those outcomes. But fundamentally, your job now is to clear the path for the team. Mm. And getting that ecosystem working between leadership, setting the path, clearing the path for the team, and the delivery teams becoming the experts is the unlock. Mm. And when that happens, it's phenomenal. But that's it. So and I don't think many transformations look at the overall system of leaders and delivery. They'll only target one thing. Like we need to put targeted coaching in our squads, for example. They don't look at that system.
So this one for me, it does bridge. I know you think about it in the people side of it, but it bridges the people and technology, which is the last and foundations that we're going to talk about. And it's the technology behind the mission-based working. I'm going to look to you, Chris, because I know that you spend a huge amount of time in this space.
Yeah.
What is different about it? What is this technology that sits or powers mission-based working?
Well, yeah, okay. So there's a number of things here. The first one actually is from an S&S perspective, we're actually we have our own platform, our own technology platform, an AI platform. We have a partnership with a university in the US, and again, it crosses all of the themes. But we've built a platform that will help through AI leaders articulate missions, but fundamentally also look at behavioural science and what makes effective teams. So we've been working with our research partner around this. What's interesting about teams and effective teams is it's broadly it's hinged around. If you look at team dynamics, it's composed of three things, right? Firstly, the composition of the team. That accounts for obviously a large percentage of team effectiveness. Have you got the right people? So can they do the things that you'd like them to do, or they need to do? But more importantly, have they got the right mix of cognitive skills? By cognitive skills, we're talking about, are you logical, creatively minded? What's your social perceptiveness? What's your articulation sort of ability? And what the science shows us is actually the most highly performant teams have the right mix of diversity across those skills, as well as can you do the job, right? So what we're doing through our AI platform actually is introducing a way of understanding the individual, but then understanding the individual in the team context, fundamentally around that. And we can do some incredible things with that because, for example, I mean, one of our clients, they've got 1,000 squads, right? They've got a small number of coaches and support people. So where do you deploy those people, right? Where are the teams that are most likely to be having some team dynamic issues, right? And we can detect that through this technology and through that science. The other thing is just introducing some techniques that, I mean, even with our own teams previously, you find that sometimes things go by the wayside, but they're really fundamental. So we've got a number of techniques that we use through our platform that allows teams to ensure that they're aligned at the start of their mission, but more importantly, throughout the mission, to go back and reconfirm that they're actually still aligned. I mean, some of it's quite simple, right? Really simple questions like, who's our customer? You ask that, right? And if across the team people answer in different ways, the people aren't aligned. What's our purpose as a team, right? Do we have all the right skills within the team to do that? So we look at that. We also look at something called transaction memory systems. So that sounds it's a really complex word. It's a research-based word. But that's around actually specialization in the team. So remember the old T-shapes, people T-shapes. It's that. Have we got the right mix of specializations in the team? And do we trust everybody individually within the team to be brilliant at those areas? But together as a team, we can contribute and make the mission a success. So yeah, we're looking at technology now to be able to provide us a lot more insight around team dynamics, but not as a big brother mechanism to help the teams understand, how they can improve as well. So that reinforces the whole sort of transformation approach.
So we've looked at those foundations that we work with clients to get in place and strongly. In S&S, we've used this then, haven't we? And it's worked. So talk to us, Adrian, in terms of how we've used it internally to drive change ourselves and what value it's brought.
Yeah, look, I've bought enough professional services myself in previous roles to know that quite often they can't pass the red face test, which is, you're selling me something, do you use this yourself? And quite often you get the red face and they're looking at the shoes. So we've always built S&S in a very in a way of thinking about trying to be progressive in the way we do things. So yeah, we use our own approaches. So mission-based working, this kind of glass tube mentality, the concept around the 5 pillars, the concept around the leadership construct with supporting the team to deliver something really, really important, really valuable, is absolutely how we deliver strategic imperatives within our own organisation. So yeah, we, as I was saying, we eat our own dog food, which is essentially, yeah, this is an approach we use internally. We wouldn't use it internally if it didn't work, but we can at least, if we sit down with our clients and say, yeah, we actually use this to deliver strategic imperatives within our own organisation, then it adds a level of credibility. But it's always been important to us, and it feels natural for us. It's the way the organisation is set up. Exactly. That's what I mean. The difference between a small organisation being able to adopt these things is relatively easy, to tell the truth, because it's a very collaborative mindset. Everyone has to do everything kind of mentality. Bigger organisations struggle with that transition sometimes, but this can be a really good way for helping them do that. But yeah, it's in our DNA, and it's something we matured into a client-facing proposition, essentially.
Yeah. So if we think about some of the things that we talked about, you've got the Agile Manifesto, and this is very much aligned with this, right? It complements it. It's not moving into something completely different, but actually it is taking a delivery approach that organisations are trying to adopt and embed, which looks simple but is hard to do, which is what we're saying. And this delivers value that is relevant to the customer, and it does it regularly and fast, right? You talked earlier, Chris, in terms of delivering £15 million worth of value within the first 90 days in terms of one of the clients that we work with. What other value have we delivered when we've been working alongside clients? What kind of things, just to bring it to life a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we've had teams look at customer journeys and own customer journeys for the first time in the organisation. One of those in their first 90 days not only developed their way of working, but took over £1 million worth of fines from the regulator. They're getting fined by the regulator literally monthly, took those out, moved their CSAT by about 30 or 40%, automated 1,000 hours of manual process, all of these kind of things. We've also helped organisations think about technical services. So it was really interesting, sort of bringing together, service operations and the technical service teams who may as well have been a million miles apart, but both locally optimized and both shouting at each other. And when you brought them together after the initial sort of forming and storming bit, shall we say, started to realize that they could help each other really quickly. Yeah. And that was fascinating to watch. So when you had the sort of service operations close to the customer team going, well, if only we had this information, the tech team, well, we got that information. I'm like, have you? Could you put that on the ServiceNow dashboard? And they're like, yeah, we could. I was like, well, that'd take weeks, wouldn't it? And they went, we could do it by tomorrow. And suddenly you've got a team working, delivering true value and stuff like that. So whether it's couriers, whether it's organizations trying to fix their workforce planning, which is just a perennial problem they've had. They didn't really know how many people they had, what they were all doing, trying to manage the attrition rates and stuff like that. We fixed that problem for them. We've used it in many, many different situations. Now we're using it, helping teams to sort of accelerate into their products and platforms kind of mentality, where they've kind of want to go there, kind of know why, struggling to work out what their products are, struggling to work out what their platforms are and how they need to work, and directionally correct, but struggling to implement. And this has really helped put sort of rocket boosters on that and drive through.
So just to bring it all together, Jack, so I think people listening to this may be thinking about the transformation. They've got a couple of options, right? Option one is, let's go with the classic approach, right? Let's spend 6-12 months designing actually an organization, a new organization design on paper, right? And then we're going to roll that out top down, okay? You're not going to realize any value during that period at all. It's not going to impact your bottom line. It's not going to drive up CSAT. It's not going to improve employee engagement. In fact, it might drive it the other way because you're doing it to them. Or you can take our approach, which is starting to mobilize those teams, deliver through the line, and you get a double whammy, right? Firstly, you're getting value, and we're showcasing that value, and you're delivering it to your bottom line for your business and for your customers. Teams are getting bought in, is starting to create that culture, which we know culture you can't do to people, right? You have to create that sort of infectious sort of culture that people are loving, and it's replicating through those water cooler conversations and people talking. So that's your choice, right? You can go with that traditional approach, or you can do something new and innovative and start realizing value in 90 days.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you both questions in turn. What would you say to someone who is committed to adopting a modern delivery method, has seen a significant financial investment and a lot of effort from their teams in terms of adopting that within their organisation, but they've failed to realise the benefits to date? What would you say to people who've lost the faith a little?
Let me go back to one of our clients who was on a transformation, had a big business case to deliver, big benefits they were going to deliver, and they got hold of us sort of 2/3, 3/4 of the way through that. And we talked to them about this approach, and they really liked it, but they didn't have any money left. Not really, it was all allocated to other things, or they'd already spent it. And I guess the question I asked them was, well, fine, but are you going to deliver all the benefits for your transformation that you intended? And after a pause, they went, well, no. And I went, okay, so you spent the money in the wrong place, right? That's just where you are, right? There's nothing you can do about that. But did they believe it enough to go, we think this one could be influential? And you know, when we spoke to the CEO, he was convinced, and he just turned around to his CFO and went, let's find the money. We've got to find the money somewhere, right, to do this, because they were stuck in limbo. So I think what my advice be to a company that's invested lots of time, effort, probably a bit fatigued from it not delivering, I'd say don't give up. You're probably directionally correct. It's just you haven't found the cut through, right? And the cut through makes such a difference, and it doesn't have to take long. You might have been on a 2-year journey so far and sitting there going, is it really working? Oh, we're all level 2, we want to be level 5, can't really articulate the value, everyone's moaning at us, all those kind of things. It doesn't feel like the promised land that we heard about from Agile. And I would say, I can change that in 90 days.
So Chris, what would you say to leaders who've lost the faith a little?
So I think 2 things, right? One, there is a bit of bravery, right? There is recognizing that it's not quite working, we will do something different. But the saving grace, right, which we always find is people always seem to think that we're going to work on something completely different here. The work that the mission-based teams are going to be working on is probably on your portfolio. In fact, I guarantee it's probably sitting on your portfolio already.
Yeah.
The difference is we're going to do it in a different way, and actually we're going to yield far better results, is it? So it's a leap of faith and a commitment to try this, right, and to bring a mission-based team together in a key part of your portfolio, and drive that transformational change inside out and through the line.
Brilliant.
So when we're talking to that change fatigued organisation, maybe they started their Agile journey 2 years ago, maybe they've had some wins, but they've had lots of losses and maybe not had the value or the cut through they've had before. Usually we kind of frame this, and it's something I sort of borrowed from a guy called Jason Clark. He talks about you can come to this with an open mind or a closed mind, right? That's you right. You can come with an open mindset or a closed mindset. And I can bring you real opportunity and real change, or I could bring you phony change again, right? That's the kind of change that maybe you bought 2 years ago from another consultancy that never really delivered. And I guess let's think about those combinations, right? So if you have, if I bring fake change and you've got an open mind, well, okay, you got your hopes up for nothing, right? But if you've got a closed mind and I've got that fake change, you get a chance to say, well, I told you so. You didn't fool me. They didn't fool me last time, and they're not going to fool me again, right? But what if what I bring is real change, right? And you've got a closed mind. Well, there's a lost opportunity there. But if I've got real change and you've got an open mind, then we've got a chance to make a real difference. So really, you as a client, you have a choice, and it's a choice to have a closed mind where you could lose a rare opportunity for real change for the right to say, I told you so. Or you could come into this with an open mind, risk disappointment once more, but for the chance of it being real and that you can make a real difference. And that's the choice I guess everyone has to make, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You know, I think we bring real change. So really, it's for a company like that, or a client like that, it's like, I know things haven't gone well, and I know you've had phony change before, but just open your mind once more for this real change, because this is going to make the real difference.
It's been really fascinating to explore in detail some of the foundations that you talk about that are really important for organisations to get in place as they go through the adoption of modern delivery approaches around the lining up or the alignment with strategic dials, the importance of customer-centricity, and how that means that your operating model emerges as a consequence of successful delivery and not from a paper design, which happens in so many instances. So thank you very much to both of you. I've really enjoyed our conversations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jax.
Cheers.